Before we dive in, I want to set the tone for this episode. This isn't a rant against motherhood or moms or anyone that feels drawn to being a parent. I have so much respect for people that choose that path, and for many it's a very beautiful and meaningful path. So, more props to you. But this episode isn't about that. It's about something we don't talk about enough, or we're starting to, at least, and it's the decision to not have kids. I've been waiting so long to make this episode. And what that means specifically in this episode, part 1, in terms of my identity, career, mental health, and just the way I shape my life. So if you're here out of curiosity, welcome. If this topic makes you uncomfortable, I ask that you please listen with an open mind, or not at all, so you can end now. Either is okay. What matters is that we make space for these real and nuanced conversations, and this is just my opinion and just my part of the conversation. Welcome to Existential Office Hours with your host, Lori. So before we get into it, you already know we're going to be doing the land acknowledgement. Let's see if I butcher it this time. So I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that I'm currently broadcasting this podcast on stolen land that was once rich in generations of culture, biodiversity, sacred traditions, and wisdom passed down through generations, was disrupted by colonization and bears the scars of history. Nevertheless, it continues to heal and regenerate despite its ongoing violence. This land remains deeply rooted in Indigenous identity for those that were here before us, those of the Mississauga of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe-Wake, and the Wendake-Nuenso nations. Acknowledging these nations is important to me as a Black woman whose home was previously colonized and is now changed by these systems to address systemic oppression and to address systemic oppression and colonization that continues to happen in our world today. The Mississauga, Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe-Wake, and Wendake-Nuenso nations of this land are not forgotten, despite ongoing injustices and displacement they have faced. The Anishinaabe values, I'm committed to continuing to minimize my impact on the environment and to continue to learn from, support, and uplift these communities. I also urge you to find your own ways to support Indigenous rights and communities that align with their values. Beautiful. One day I'll get it. One day. I had a good start. Okay, but anyways. So let's get into it. In this specific part of my why I don't feel drawn to have kids, I'm just going to be going over the career aspect of that for me, the mental health aspect, and then just cultural expectations. I feel like there are so many parts to this that are not talked about, and just like making that decision is a really, really big decision. So I don't think it's something a lot of child-free people take lightly at all. Maybe some people do, that's fine, but I think in most cases a lot of thought has gone into it, and like years and years of thought has gone into it. So yeah, I'm excited to do this. So let's start off with just some background. I, as a little girl, I just thought it was like normal for me to grow up, get married, have kids, have family, whatever. Like that was like the dream. I wanted 3 kids named Laura, Linnea, which is like crazy because that's my best friend's name, and Lorondo, Yeah, I had the names picked out, set in stone. Okay, that's on my childhood bucket list. But anyways, that won't be happening. I wanted 3 kids, 2 girls, 1 boy, and that was like, yeah, like this is happening. I didn't even give a second thought to it. I was just like, this is happening. And then obviously that's like the societal norm for like, you know, women to like just have kids, whatever. But then I started to question it. I honestly don't really remember when I started to question it. I know it was probably around like high school time, but it wasn't a specific single moment that I was like something switched and I was like, yeah, I don't want kids. I think it was more of like a progression, and I think I was still like very teeter-tottery, like, oh, it's situational, it depends. But now I'm kind of more set in stone. I'm still holding space for if I decide to have kids in the future. You know, if I completely do a full 180 and change my mind, which, guys, if that happens, that's not me. Call the police. It's an alien. It's not me. But anyways, if that does happen, I hold space for it. You know, I'm not judging if future me wants to bear children. But I think the chances of that happening are extremely, extremely low. So, yeah, I don't really remember when it started happening, but it started happening, and now we're here. Um, and a lot of thought has gone into it, and a lot of years and years and years of thought has gone into it, and I just truly cannot see myself with children. I love children. That's not what the point is. um, but I just like, you know, when you like imagine yourself in like the next 5 years or in the future, and you're like, yeah, I could see myself with 2 childrens. I can't. I can't. I can see myself playing with kids on my little cousins, but not my own. And we'll get into it. And I think this episode is really important because I've noticed there's been more of a shift towards child-free people. And I think it's an important conversation to have, especially in this community, the existential community, because I think it's something that's very relevant to talk about, and a lot of people might also be experiencing and grappling with. And of course, no one owes anyone an explanation for why they decide to have kids or decide not to have kids. But I don't mind explaining and exploring that territory, so that's why I'm doing this. I also have had a lot of people ask me why I don't want kids, just out of genuine curiosity, and it would be so much easier to tell them, hey, refer to episode 7 of my podcast, please, instead of going through the long list. So yeah, that brings us to where we are today. We are here. So the first reasoning for this part 1 episode is career focused wise. I am, like I mentioned before, and I think I said this in like the first episode or something, I'm very type A personality, and so I feel like if I had decided to have kids, I would need to have my shit figured out like yesterday. And that's just me. I'm not saying if you want kids, you need to have that figured out. No, that's just me and like my expectations for myself, because I have very high expectations of myself in that regard. And so, you know, I would need to figure that out. And it's a lot of pressure to be placed on you. And I understand the conversation that is like, you don't necessarily need a timeline, but I need a timeline. Okay, I need a 10-year plan. Why do I need a 10-year plan? Because if I'm like 22, turning 23 right now, and the prime age to be having babies is like right now to mid 30s, late 30s type thing, I have a solid like little over a decade. What would I have to do in that decade, you might ask? Well, I would have to go get my master's, get my PhD, practice, work, work enough to be making a decent bit of money. In that same time, I would also need to find a partner, like them long enough before I marry them. Find a home in a nice neighborhood, and then we could have the conversation of having kids. And that's like in 10 years. And obviously 10 years seems like a long time, but time really flies. Okay? So that would have to be my plan, and I would have to be in like a master's program in the next like year or two, which could be doable. But just like that added pressure to get this stuff like checked off is not something I feel like I want. I would also like to add that if I did decide to have kids, doing all those steps would purely, okay, be for my potential child. Not because I want to, okay? That's not because of me. And that just doesn't feel genuine to me. And I don't think I would enjoy it. Because now, if I decide to go back do my master's, I know that's because I want to. Like, I truly want to. And that really makes a difference when you're in school and exam season is hidden and it's hard and, shit's hitting the fan. Because at least I'm going to like what I'm doing. Because, yeah, my undergrad was rough. Thesis kicked my butt. I loved my supervisor, though. But at least I loved what I was doing and it was interesting. And I'm doing it for me, not because I want to have a child in the future. And that just didn't align with me. I also find it ironic to like work, like slave away, or not slave away, but in my situation, to like check off all these boxes, get these degrees, get this job for a kid, and then like just doing that all for a family, like that just didn't sit right with me. And I know no one's telling me to do that, but I'm telling me to do that. And the voices in my head, they're mean. No, I'm kidding. They are mean though. But yeah, it's important to push yourself. So yeah, career goals would be like times 10 what they are right now. I would have no rest time whatsoever. It would just purely be for like the next step of my life, which does not seem like a vibe. It doesn't seem like a vibe. Okay? Ugh. Guys, tell your moms you love them. Anyways. So yeah. And I think on top of that too, there's society is not like very, I don't know what the word is, but there's a lot of pressure placed on moms, like regardless whether they're stay-at-home moms or working moms. They're kind of like modern day like superheroes. They're expected to be like the perfect being. Like if you work and take care of the kids, let alone single moms, I don't even know how they do it, but yeah, if you work and take care of the kids, you kind of have to, I don't even, that just sounds crazy to me. Working and taking care of children. Truly, I have so much respect for mothers, parents, whatever, that do that, because that's actually crazy. If I just finished my 8-hour shift, some people do 12-hour shift and come home to take care of a child. That would be my 13th reason. I'm not joking. That I can't even fathom that. I guess it's something you kind of don't need to fathom. You just have to like do it, like go robot mode and do it. Because if you think about it, you'll go crazy. You will. That's crazy. So yeah, there's a lot of societal expectations, and then there's that like with stay-at-home moms, people are like, "Oh, you're using your husband's money," or whatever, or I feel like society really isn't like, women can never win. Women can never win. If you're working, you're not home with the kids enough. And if you're a stay-at-home mom, you're not helping out the family enough. Like, it's really ironic, and it's really not cool, I think. Yikes. Anyways, I'm not trying to convince people to not have kids. Let me say that right now, because I'm scaring myself. Um, but yeah, anyways, the next topic of business was the mental health aspect. Yay! Yay! Yeah. And I have a history of depression. Yeah, I've never been formally diagnosed, but depression is one of those things where it's like, how much of a formal diagnosis do you need? Like, if you check off like all the boxes in the DSM, like, do you really need a certificate saying congrats, you're depressed? Anyway, so yeah, I have a history of that, and you cannot tell me. Call me a pessimist if you must. Personally, I think I'm a realist, but you cannot tell me that I won't have PPD, postpartum depression, from carrying and birthing my child. I will. I probably will. Okay? And I'm aware of that. I'm well aware of that. And not I'm not open to that idea, quite frankly. It's scary. Postpartum depression is scary. There's also postpartum psychosis. I don't even want to think about that. But yeah, I haven't heard much about postpartum depression just because I don't want to hear about it. It seems scary. But it's not a fun place to be. Regular depression isn't a fun place to be. I cannot imagine. I can't fathom in my brain just having birthed a child and the universe is telling you, oh, you should love this child, and they're your baby, you should love them, you just want to be with them all the time, but instead you're experiencing postpartum depression. Like, just like the mental effects and the societal pressure, like, and then if you don't have like an amazing supportive partner, I don't know how women do it sometimes. True superheroes. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. And then, that's just one of my mental health reasons. I also think it's important to acknowledge that, from my degree in psych and the fun things I've learned about intergenerational trauma. Yeah, neuroscience was a fun course for me. I really did enjoy neuroscience, but it was very eye-opening, to say the least. But yeah, it's important to recognize the predispositions that you are potentially setting your child up for. And nothing's guaranteed, obviously, but I don't find it very ethical, and I don't think I would be able to comfortably live with myself if I know that I have a history of depression, and if I birth a child, they might be exposed to certain situations that can activate that gene. Because, you can't shelter your child forever. Even if I put them in homeschool and I'm a stay-at-home mom and I do everything with them, you have to let them live their life regardless. So you can, do your part in being the best mom or parent or dad or whatever, but they're going to experience the environment, the macro system, as Brenner would call it. He has a really fun name. Okay, but yeah. And so it's one of those things that this would be so bad. Like, this would age so badly if I popped out with 5 kids in 5 years. But I don't think that's gonna happen. But yeah, it's just not ethical for me to bring a child, for me, okay? Don't come for me. To bring a child in this world, if I know this history and I have this education, that this is a possibility, because depression is something that I would never wish on my worst enemy. Granted, I don't really have enemies, but still, it's really, really, really debilitating, and it's the worst. So, well, obviously there's worse things, but it's up there. Okay, it's up there with the worst. And it's like seeing your child sad and knowing there's very little you can do about it, because you can do some stuff, I'm sure, but regardless, depression is debilitating. it would just absolutely break my heart, and I would feel extreme shame and extreme guilt, and that's not something I want to live with for the rest of my life, because I would never forgive myself. I would never. So yeah, not to mention intergenerational trauma. What does that mean, Larry K? It's trauma that's passed down through generations. How do you pass down trauma through generations? Let me tell you. So, at least for women, for men, the timeline is kind of shorter, but if you're a woman, you're born with all your eggs. A little psych lesson right now that I learned in neuroscience. You're born with all your eggs. So what that means is, let's take my bloodline, for example. When my grandma was pregnant with my mother, she had all her eggs. My mother had all her eggs inside her body, her baby body. Anyways, so what that means is that all the experiences and genes and hormones, essentially, this is like a dumbed down version, that my grandma experienced through her pregnancy with my mother, and my great grandma, same thing, passed down to my mom. That's all getting stuffed kind of into the fetus, my mom, and into her own eggs, me. So yeah, and obviously, like, that's just a very, very rough, dumbed down example, but it's just going to say, like, intergenerational trauma is very real. You know, genetics are a thing, and so that fascinated me, and I was like, yeah, I'm not having kids ever after learning that. But it's really super duper interesting. For men, I think it kind of is shorter, because I don't think they're born with all their sperm. I don't know. But yeah, so it's a bit shorter for men, but yeah, it's scary. And with that, I know my limits, you know. I get overstimulated very easy. I love my alone time. Okay, I love being alone. It's one of my favorite things, to be alone and in my bed, like I am right now. So I can't really imagine bringing a little baby human into that space. I'm fine hanging out with kids when, you know, at a function or event or babysitting or something. But forever, ever, is a little bit crazy. I also think it's important to acknowledge that there's no guarantee that you, me, anyone will have a healthy child. So you have to also keep in mind that your child might not be healthy. They might be born with a disability. God forbid, of course, but it is always a possibility. And even if they're not born with that, they can also develop one. Nothing's guaranteed. You can't shelter them forever. So yeah, and that's just, it seems very draining to me, regardless whether they're healthy or not. And so I don't think it would be a good idea for me. That's just a rough rundown of the mental health side. And you can say this is eugenics. I'm not engaging in that conversation. But yeah, everyone has their own limits. Oh, yeah, I also forgot. I think it's important to acknowledge, like I said a few episodes before, I have no will to live. That didn't change. So, you know, I feel like at the very basic level, like the very foundation, like deep down, I should probably have a will to live if I'm having a kid. I don't even want to talk about, I'm going to hold your hand actually before I say this. Give me your hand. I don't even want to talk about the whole, my child gave my life meaning. I should insert cricket noises. Because I'm not saying your child shouldn't, like, have meaning in your life and be, like, this beautiful big portion of your life. They are a big part of your life. But I feel like it's very, very, very important to have whatever you determine as meaning prior to having the kid, right? And I say that simply because anything can happen. Anything can happen. Your child could pass away, God forbid, knock on wood. They can fall ill. Like, a lot of things can happen, and I feel like at the very foundation, even though you love your child, and obviously they're this big, huge meaning and purpose in your life, you should still establish that, in my opinion, don't come for me, before having a child. I saw a TikTok of a 7 kids before 27, something like that. And the lady was saying that she needed her kids and they gave her life meaning and she needed love, and you know, that's what I hear when anyone says their kid gives their life meaning. You're like on the same level as their. Anyways, I told you to stop listening if you don't want to hear it. But yeah, I'm a little sassy today, but I think this is like a really, really important topic because I don't think this conversation was had in a lot in previous generations. And I finally think, like, our generation, millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, whatever, I think they're starting to have that conversation. And I think it's important because having kids is a really, really big step. It's like one of the biggest steps you can take in your life, if not the biggest. Because you're bringing a life into this world. You're bringing a person into this world. And that's not something I take lightly, and it's not something other people should take lightly either. It's not something that should be done selfishly. Obviously, most reasons for having kids are going to sound selfish, but you shouldn't do it like solely for you, if that makes sense. Like, the child has their own life. They can grow up to hate you for all you know, and you have to be prepared for that. So I think it's something we need to talk about on a deeper level. I don't really have much time for the last topic I had for this conversation. It was just about cultural expectations. And I'll just say quickly, a lot of times when I tell my family I don't want kids, like my immediate family already knows. They're whatever. They don't really question me about it. But you know, like new family members that I'm telling, because, you know, I'm preparing people so they don't ask me when I'm married or in, I don't know how many years, 10 years, where's the babies? Why are you having kids? I told you this. I also think with a lot of guys, that happens when, like, girls tell guys they don't want kids. Like, I don't know why some guys, not all, will think they're joking or, you know, they can change their mind. No, babe. It's not about you. I don't know what would make you think this conversation is something that you can change my mind on. You're the last person that's being considered. So I say that to say, if you're a guy listening to this and you think you can change someone's mind, good luck. But yeah, a lot of the times when I will tell my family, my grandma almost had a heart attack when I told her, by the way. She like dropped everything. So, you know, it's gonna take some getting used to, but at least I tell them now so it can sink in. I have other siblings, so, you know, it's not a lost cause. But yeah, I'm not having kids. And I told, a common response that I get from like people is, what if your husband leaves you and finds someone that he can have children with? Kudos. That's not my husband. Why would I marry him? Like, if this is, having kids is a big deal, okay? And I would never like hold someone back from that. I'm also not willing to compromise that. Girls, listen to me. That's not something you compromise. A life is not something you compromise. If you know deep down in your bones, if you're still like wishy-washy on the fence, like whatever, but if you know deep down in your bones that you don't want kids, why would you compromise? I'm gonna stop. But yeah, it's not something I'm willing to compromise. So I would kindly thank my partner for telling me. I wish him all the best. Because obviously if I love them, I want them to be happy. So, yeah, please go find a partner that will have kids with you. That's a huge deal. Congrats. Wish you all the best. That's not my man. If it's a case where he like cheats on me to have a kid, like, you know, prenups are a thing, right? Like, right? Like, you know, prenups are a thing, right? Like, he can have his baby, I'll have his money. Anyways, so yeah, it's an interesting topic. And then if I tell people that like aren't family, it's really interesting. I urge you guys to try this if you also don't want kids, because they'll kind of like project their reasoning onto me for why I don't want kids. Some people will be like, oh, you know, you can have a surrogate. I never said nothing. All I said was I don't want kids. Where did a surrogate come from? Is that what you didn't want? Like, so it's really, really funny. It's really funny. It's a fun little game I like to play. Projection. But yeah, so it's really, really interesting. Um, and it's something like a lot of the older generation like just can't wrap their head around, because obviously they were told like you have to have a kid. Like, that's just not something you don't want. Like, my grandma kept trying to convince me my home will not be happy without kids. I'm like, at least it'll be peaceful, Grandma. It'll be peaceful, okay? That's all. I don't need a happy home. I just need peace and quiet. So, yeah, it was a funny conversation. She was not enjoying it, but yeah. At least I'm not the only sibling. So I have two other siblings that can have children on behalf of me. So, yeah. So, anyways, I will close and I will say that that's where I'm at right now, choosing not to have kids, at least for now, because I'm choosing myself. And I'm holding space to figure out who I am without defaulting to a role that is so often expected of women. If that's resonated with you or even challenged you, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Part 2 is coming, probably not for a bit, but that's okay. Until then, keep questioning the script, and I'll see you next time on Existential Office Hours. Bye, everyone.